The rain fell in sheets, a relentless curtain across the vast, dark savanna. The old nomad lion, a deep limp slowing his pace, trudged toward the dark mouth of a cave. Tucked close behind him, a small cub, no bigger than his shadow, followed every pained step. Both were soaked to the bone, their fur matted and heavy with water. Their eyes, wide and weary, scanned the darkness that pressed in from all sides. The cub, trembling from the cold and the fear that had been their constant companion, finally broke the silence. His small voice was barely a whisper against the storm. "Father, will they find us again?" The nomad paused at the cave entrance, his gruff voice softened by a gentleness reserved only for the cub. "Not tonight! The storm hides our scent." As if on cue, a deafening crack of thunder tore through the sky, and for a fleeting moment, the landscape was illuminated. In that flash of lightning, far across the plain, the silhouettes of hyenas could be seen, their heads low to the ground, sniffing, searching. Inside the relative safety of the cave, the storm was a muffled roar. The cub curled into a tight ball, trying to find sleep, but his small body still shivered with exhaustion and lingering terror. The nomad, however, did not rest. He stood guard at the cave's entrance, a silent, imposing figure. His eyes, glowing faintly in the deep gloom, stared out into the tempestuous night. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. The rhythmic drumming of the rain became a backdrop to the storm raging within his own mind. His thoughts drifted back, pulling him into the shadows of his past. He saw it all with painful clarity. The pride he once commanded, a kingdom built on strength and respect. He saw the face of his brother, a face that once mirrored his own but had become twisted by jealousy and ambition. And then, the night it all came crashing down, the betrayal, the fight, the loss of everything he held dear. He clenched his jaw, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "You took my crown, brother," he thought, the words a silent vow. "But you'll never take my spirit." His gaze softened as he looked down at the sleeping cub, a fragile hope in this world of chaos. "You will rise where I fell," he whispered, the promise carried away by the wind howling outside. As dawn broke, the fury of the storm subsided. The rain ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean. Steam rose from the damp earth like ghosts ascending to the heavens. The air was thick with the scent of wet soil and renewed life. The nomad and the cub emerged from the cave, blinking in the new, soft light. But the sense of peace was shattered in an instant. There, pressed into the soft mud, were fresh tracks. Not hyenas, lions. The brothers' patrol had been here. The scent was unmistakable. The cub's fur bristled. "It's them again," he whispered, his voice trembling. The nomad looked down at the tracks, then toward the misty horizon. A grim determination settled over his features. "Then it's time to face destiny." He began to move. His limp, a testament to battles past. His steps slow and deliberate through the rising mist. The cub, shaking off his fear, fell into step behind him, mimicking his father's every move. His small frame a mirror of the larger, battle-scarred warrior. Their path led them to the watering hole, the heart of the territory. And there, across the shimmering water, they stood. The brother, a powerful lion with a jagged scar bisecting one eye, watched their approach. His pride, a collection of hardened hunters, stood arrayed behind him, their muscles tense. The air crackled with a silence, more deafening than any roar. The brother was the first to speak, his voice a low, threatening growl that rippled across the water. "You should have stayed! Gone!" The nomad met his gaze, his own voice steady and devoid of fear. "You should have stayed just!" Another tense silence stretched between them. Then the cub, in a surprising act of defiance, stepped out from behind the nomad to stand beside him. He was tiny, almost insignificant against the backdrop of powerful adults, but his stance was fearless. The brother let out a harsh, mocking laugh. You brought a cub to die with you! The nomad's eyes never left his brother's, but his words were for the entire world to hear. No! I brought him to learn how lions truly live. And with that, the fight began. It was a storm of a different kind of whirlwind of claws and teeth, of roars that echoed across the plains and sent birds scattering from the trees. The world erupted into chaos. The cub, following his father's earlier instruction, scrambled for cover behind a cluster of rocks, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched, horrified and mesmerized, as his father battled not just his brother, but the ghosts of his own past. The fight was brutal, a clash of titans. But the nomad was older, wounded. His brother, in his prime, and fueled by years of resentment, began to gain the upper hand. With a powerful shove, he sent the nomad crashing to the ground. He stood over him, a triumphant snarl on his face, claws extended for the final, fatal blow. Just as he lunged, a flash of tawny fur shot out from the rock. The cub, driven by an instinct he didn't know he possessed, leaped forward and sank his tiny, sharp teeth into the brother's hind leg. It wasn't enough to wound, but the shock and pain were enough to cause a fatal hesitation. That split-second distraction was all the nomad needed. With a final, desperate surge of strength, he struck back, throwing his brother off balance and sending him crashing to the ground. Silence fell upon the watering hole, broken only by the ragged, panting breaths of the two lions. The cub stood beside his father, trembling, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of his first real fight. The nomad looked down at him, a weak, proud smile touching his lips. You were brave, my son? He slowly lifted his head and looked toward the horizon, where the sun was now rising in a blaze of red and gold, painting the clouds with the promise of a new day. The battle was over. The throne was not reclaimed, but something far more important had been won. The nomad, wounded but alive, turned his back on his defeated brother and the pride he once ruled. With the cub walking proudly by his side, he began to walk away. Some journeys are not about reclaiming a throne, but about teaching another how to build one. As their silhouettes disappeared into the brilliant morning light, a new legacy had just begun.